Good Friday evening, everyone. This is Cassandra Williamson with The Path Forward. We have lots to cover today. We've got a lot of stuff going on in this country right now with our leadership within the Department of Defense, within the White House, that are just absolutely mind bogglingly stupid. Can I say it any simpler? It's dumb. Really is. Okay. First thing about breaking news. My goodness, I almost forgot what it was now because of everything else that's going on here. Let me go back for a second. I got to find one of my tabs because, this is just, I'm scanning through the news and I see all this stuff out here that's just taking place. And the big breaking news thing is that, and it's not even one of the bigger ones, but it is a huge one. It is a huge one that goes contrary to whatever we believe in and support in defense of our Constitution. Stephen Miller is saying that the White House is looking into suspending habeas corpus in relation to immigration. We knew that was coming, right? No one's surprised by that. Are you surprised by it? I am not. I am not. And if any of you have been watching any of the stories and blog posts and different emails that I send out, you'll see that we've been saying this for a long time. Stuff's coming that you need to be prepared for. You need to have a path forward that actually is sustainable and can protect you and your property and your people and your families. You've got to be ready for this stuff because one step over the line into habeas corpus suspension of it, well, it's been done 4 times in the U.S. so far. Okay, so far. One time was for during the Civil War. Lincoln did it. Then Congress passed an act and it was signed into law by Lincoln to actually do it full force. Then in 1871, it was done again in like 9 counties of South Carolina because, white people went on a rampage with the Ku Klux Klan and they were just going berserk down there. So that was one case. And then the other case had to do with during the Second World War out in Hawaii. That one, they suspended habeas corpus on the island there during the war. And also the fourth one was to do with the Philippines when they were under U.S. control. So those are the 4 times. All of them had to do with some form of war. And even the one with 1871 was still a situation in which they were still pissed about losing the Civil War. And, they were going on a rampage and Black people had been freed and were actually taking advantage of the civil processes that had been enabled by them. And so the Ku Klux Klan decided, we can't have this, in their white robes and hiding their faces. So, yeah, the suspension of habeas corpus is a massive thing. And it's going to test all the boundaries. It's going to test everything we know about the legal system. Obviously, it'll be challenged in all kinds of courts everywhere along the way. But they're going to try. And they've got a Supreme Court now that actually will agree with them on a lot of things. And most likely, and this is me prognosticating, okay, being a Nostradamus-like here, or Cassandra from up in the valley, because, remember the story of Cassandra, the Greek prophetess? Well, that's she spoke, nobody listened. But what she said was right. No, I'm not that arrogant, but nonetheless, I still, I know when I'm wrong. But anyway, I project that if they do proceed with habeas corpus, it's going to depend, as Stephen Miller said, it's going to depend upon how the courts proceed these days. But, the right and left use the courts to their advantage no matter what. I mean, the right has ones in California and in New York and Chicago and different places like that they can count on. Well, so the right has theirs too. They primarily go down to the panhandle of Texas. Amarillo, to be sure. Yes, out there on I-40. So, yeah, they're depending on that. They're waiting for that to happen, and maybe get it straightened out. Now, here comes the one that actually just blows me out of the freaking water. There was a news story released probably about 16, 17 hours ago, talking about Pete Hegseth and a professor at West Point. This professor was Professor Parsons, and Professor Parsons is a philosophy professor at the Military Academy of West Point. And after 13 years of tenured work at West Point, dealing with everyone there, he's resigning. He resigned, effective immediately, I think, or at the end of this academic year. And Hegseth's remark was, "You will not be missed, Professor Parsons." I mean, what's up with this guy? He's got the brain the size of a peanut, apparently. Oh, geez. And a self-image of masculinity that is really, really, really being threatened by trans women. It's just craziness. I mean, he's just threatened by everything coming and going, okay? So what did he do today? Well, that was something he'd said 15 or so hours ago, but within the past hour, well, about at 3:22 p.m. this afternoon, the Military Times reporting that Hegseth also ordered the military to pull all library books on diversity. So I'm reading down through here. The Pentagon has ordered all, this is me quoting from the Military Times, and the article is written by Lolita C. Baldor. The title is called Pentagon Orders Military to Pull All Library Books on Diversity. Get that? Okay. So from the Associated Press. Yeah, I think the Military Times picked it up. Anyway, pull and review all their library books that address diversity, anti-racism, or gender issues by May 21st. In the broadest and most detailed directive to rid the military of diversity and equity programs, policies, and instructional materials, and it follows similar efforts to remove them at other military academies. Yes, of course it does. That's exactly what he has been wanting to do. But his big target are the, as he said in a little video clip right here, this video clip.
No more climate change obsession. No more emergency vaccine mandates. No more dudes in dresses. We're done with that shit.
That was Pete Hegseth, folks. I really think he has a problem. I don't think he's very secure in his masculinity. Do you? I mean, it's really, why else would you go after someone who is just living their life, doing their job, and doing it well in the military? Or as veterans, why would you do that? You got to have a little small thing about like that, maybe a piss-size thing, you know? Maybe you have that kind of insecurity. I don't know, but he's got a lot of kids, so it could be a challenge with that kind of thinking. But there's something up in his head. It's not right. It's not right. It's not right to pull books from academies and the military, across the military. You know why? I'm going to say this again, and I've said it for the past 4 shows that I've done. Leadership requires a broad understanding and experience and knowledge base that comes from all kinds of sources, many of which you do not necessarily agree with, but at least you are able to read them and think about them and process them. You don't have to accept them, but you know what they are. You study your enemy for the same exact reason. You want to know every detail about them. Back in the Cold War era, you studied everything possible about communism and the Soviet Union and China. You studied those things, their weaponry and all of it. That's what I remember doing that when I was in the military. Yeah, had to know every one of those darn silhouettes. And I also had to know, by the way, I also had to know every electronic signature that came off those darn things so that I could tell you when they changed shifts and likely who the operator was on their radars. Yeah, I was one of those. But anyway, so when you start stripping away access to knowledge and access to resources like books or online literature or whatever, you just start restricting it all, you are stymieing your strategic leaders. You're cutting them, the legs out from under them. Yes, you are. I don't care what you think about it. That's the truth. Strategic leadership requires people who are well read. It does not require them. And this is what you don't want. And this is what Hegseth is doing to our military right now. He's creating this silo that he has a picture of what military people ought to be. And he's building the walls up on this silo, this echo chamber, so that it's just this. It's just this. And nothing shall ever penetrate that. No extra knowledge that he hasn't approved, nothing. And it's dangerous for the future of leadership in our military. Because every senior leader who has any capacity to actually lead strategically and think strategically, every senior leader I know, and I've known a lot, every senior leader I know, whether in the military or civilian corporate world or business world, whatever, that requires them to read extensively. That way they have an understanding of what's going on in their businesses, because the businesses are made up of what? Not robots. People. Made up of people. And those people, unless you have got a strict silo you've got them all stuck in, and then you got gatekeepers there making sure they're just towing the line with what you do, they have lives outside of those things, and they actually interact in worlds, and things happen with them that unless you are well read and well, having studied all kinds of different things, it's hard for you to lead them. It's hard for you to empathize. It's hard for you to be compassionate. And those are skills of leadership, folks. Those are too. You've got to know your people, and you've got to know your enemy, and you have to know yourself well enough to know that, I don't like that thing right there, and this is why. Or I agree with that particular issue, and this is why. You have to be a critical thinker. And you can't get critical. You can't be a critical thinker if your access to knowledge is restricted. It just blows my mind. Blows my mind to see all this stuff happening. He banned affirmative also at our U.S. military academies today. For them, when the affirmative action rules and all that were suspended around the country on civilian universities, well, the Supreme Court had said except for the military academies. Well, Hegseth banned that today. I really don't see a big deal with that. I do know this, that meritocracy is not the way this stuff works. The best people aren't always the most highly qualified. The best people in your team don't look like everything else, and don't necessarily have to follow exactly every procedure or whatever. You know what it is? People are scared to death of differences. And we have people in the military who are vastly different from anyone else. We've got people out here like Pete Hegseth, who's got they need a microscope to find things, but those 15 kids, I don't know how that happened. A bunch of kids. So I don't know if he's got 15. But anyway, so this has been just getting on me like crazy. And then you have this happening, changing the topic slightly. You got the Texas Senate solar plants to provide power at night. Let me read that again. This is coming out of the Hill. Texas Senate passes bill requiring solar plants to provide power at night. Another bill that was passed said that for every megawatt of power that comes out of a solar power, you've got to also have a megawatt of gas-generated power. But this one here just cracks me up. Let me show you this thing. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Here we go. I'm going to share this page with you. This page from the Hill. Okay, I think I did. Where did it go? There it is. It's slowly coming up. Anyway, so right here you see, this is by the Hill. It was done about maybe 3 hours ago now, though. Texas Senate passes bill requiring solar plants to provide power at night. Oh, Lord, my head hurts. But you know what they're doing? They're trying to shut them down because they don't believe in these things. They don't believe in alternative sources of energy and power. They want the coal and gas-fired ones only, apparently. So they were going to require these solar generating sources and geothermal sources to, have backup power, or solar anyway, backup power at night, or use power from the power system that's already there, the power grid that's already in place, completely defeating the purpose of having them to start out with. Oh my God. Anyway, what does our country come to? I don't know, folks. It's just baffling to me. Let me see. I had another story up here at the top. What was that about? I got monitors around this place here. Anyway, I think that's primarily what I wanted to talk about. Just keep in mind that the path forward out of all of this stuff is take care of yourself, be well to yourself, take care of your friends and family, where you live, work, and play, be good with them, respect them. Don't get stuck in a silo, because the people I want to bring onto this program, by the way, don't necessarily have to say and agree with everything I say, because I don't want that. I don't need to be patted on the back for the things that I agree with or say. And neither should you. You should seek out alternative views, different views, have viewpoint diversity, and seek it. That makes whatever you're working on much more sustainable. It will last longer. It will be there through it all. So let me give you one example in closing. Okay, and this is a path forward. Just think about this one thing. In a little town in Warrensburg, Missouri, I was involved with the city council, and I noticed that they had a statute. Their statutes included a human relations committee since 1974. So for 40 years, more than 40 years, 45, almost 50 years, they could never get it seated. So we worked out a little program with the city council, and we brought them on and got them on board with doing a working group, kind of an analysis group, basically, and take a little bit of time. They wanted to know who I wanted on this committee as underneath the city council of the city of Warrensburg. And I started out by listing, I want the local imam from the Islamic Center. I want the local Baptist church preacher. I want a conservative leader from the Republican Party. I want a leader from the Democratic Party. And I want representatives in the LGBTQ plus community. And they looked at me and said, not all those won't agree with you. And I said, that's the point. If we just create a silo that says only these people are welcome in and only these views and perspectives are allowed, your silo will grow and grow and grow and become so strong you can't even recognize the rest of the world except through approved lenses. And by the way, I did that there for a year or so, got people on there. We had a lot of stuff changed, and now that thing is operational because we included opposing views. You don't necessarily have to have everyone around you who agrees with you. You're just cutting your legs off by doing that. Let me give you another example. In the 50s, Lavender Scare, LGB or gays and lesbians and everybody else in that community were all starting to coalesce. You had the riots, the Stonewall riots led by a trans woman, a couple of trans women actually, and actually started the thing moving for gay rights, okay? Leading up to finally marriage equality, which happens to be something that this group of conservatives in the power right now want to eradicate and remove. Anyway, whether you believe it, it's still true. They want to do it. So this silo started forming around LGBT rights. This inside that and all the protesting that was occurring in the 60s, you start seeing all these different groups coalesce around their identity, their relationship with one another. And the biggest thing that brought them all together was that it was another minority that was under threat. Whether or not they all agreed with each other, they were willing to stand with them because they were a minority that was under threat. So the protesting and all of this stuff, and the riot that's occurred in Chicago with the police using excessive force during the Democratic convention, and also with the shooting on Ohio State University, the Ohio State 4. Crosby, Stills, and Nash put that song out about it. So we start seeing these silos being created. And along the way, what happens? They start putting gatekeepers in place that says, what you say is not necessarily what we want to agree with, so we're kicking you out. What's the end result of that? You have the majority of society at large growing more and more distant from you. Now, yeah, the polls showed acceptance improving and all this kind of stuff. They don't now, do they? Polls go by the wind. Whatever's happening in the country at the time, it can shift a political thing around or whatever, or an ideology around, and the affinity that people have for certain views and things goes up and down. That's just the way it works. That's just the nature of human life, folks. But we get these silos, and now we get all of these people out here going, what happened? What happened? I can't hear anything anymore. I don't know why we're being treated this way. You started it yourself by not being inclusive. You started it yourself. All the things you think you gained along the way, all the rights you think you acquired along the way, are being stripped away now because the foundation was an echo chamber. Find ways to interact with others who do not agree with you respectfully. Now, if they're violent about it, that's a different story. That's a different story altogether. So in closing, the path forward is engage with people where you live, become an asset in your community, start preparing for the worst, because what's happening right now is definitely going to get worse. And then I'm going to read some comments. Yeah, I've got Junia Childers, a friend down in Alabama. As you know, I was an Operations Special Navy, and the ones of us who were successful were the ones who read all of the books that we possibly could. And yes, I agree with that 100%. Absolutely. And people who would not read the necessary text would get passed by for promotions and wondered why. Yes, they would. With that, everyone, I hope you have a great weekend. Come back Monday noon. I believe it's going to be about 1 p.m. actually for midday muster. I'll do much of the same kind of stuff. If you want to come on board and you have a different view, send me an email. Here's that email address for you, just so you can get that out there. Take that down, write it down, send me an email, and if you'd like to join, do so. And then, let's see. Got 2 comments up there. I think that's what that means. All right, everyone. Have a good one. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.